Each of us is headed to a unique destination, but we all use the same tools to get there, okay? There's many places to go, but we all use a compass, a map, whatever it is. Those don't change. So these tools that we'll talk about in the course are one of those navigational instruments that you can use, but it's up to you to determine what the destination is. And by destination, I'm really talking about your ideal future self. What is the coolest possible future self that you could imagine? When you think about that concept of you in the future, what are the accomplishments that this person has achieved that make them proud? And what big events needed to occur for them to become who they are? So what are those milestones? What are those achievements? What makes you feel proud when you look at that person and imagine being that person? That's how you're going to begin to chart your course. You're going to start by clearly visualizing your destination, your ideal future self, and then work backwards, setting milestones and just saying, okay, here are the sites, here are the landmarks along the way that this person passed until you get back to your present self, who you are today. Write that down. The more intention you put into something, writing it down, the more real it becomes. I often say it's not real until it's written or spoken or drawn. Putting more intention and more effort into those things that you want to manifest does make them more real and more possible. So definitely do that and focus on the feelings of pride that you will have when you become that ideal future self. The reason that imaginary future self appeals to you is because that person truly embodies and exemplifies your personal values. Those personal values determine the attributes that you admire in others and value in yourself. They're like the themes that define who you are. So in order to build that ideal future self, it's important to identify what those values are, what those themes are for you. So how do we do that? Well, there's a few ways that I think are helpful to get closer to identifying what your values are. First, examine your peak experiences. What are some things that made you feel really good? And what was it about that experience that really made it so important and so emotionally resonant for you? On the other hand, what are some negative experiences? For example, if there was a time when you had a really negative experience because something was unfair, maybe you can tease out from that one of your values is justice. Another place to look for your values is in your own personal code of conduct. Once you have a list of values, maybe you have 10, 15, you can start to group these values together and identify the bigger themes that these values represent. And then start paring away until you get to your essential values, which are the ones that really compose who you are as a person, the ones that you would never violate under any circumstances because that's just who you are. Try to get down to around 5, I think is a good number. And those are really your core values that make up who you are. And those are going to be the sort of inexhaustible power source that will push you forward on this journey. One more tool that I think can be very useful for value discovery is the Ikigai. As it says on this wonderful image, Ikigai is a Japanese concept which means a reason for being. And if you fill in each of the segments of these circles, I think that you will also get a lot closer to understanding something about yourself and your values and what it is that's going to be important to you on your journey through life. As you begin to consider what changes you want to make in your life to bring you into alignment with those values and actually live those values, it will become obvious that a lot of familiar patterns in your life are difficult to change. Some patterns will be so familiar that you won't even recognize them as patterns. You'll just take them for granted as life. And this is your original unconscious programming. It's the system that you got that was installed in your brain throughout your childhood before you were able to before you had the ability to think about things in a more critical way. So you need to determine what you want your programming to be so that you can intentionally reprogram your patterns of thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. So you're always running a program. The choice is between running your unconscious programming that was installed in your childhood without your awareness, or actually running intentional programming which is built specifically for who you are as an adult, and it has the most potential of bringing you closer to your life goals. So we'll wrap up by just starting our treatment plan. And this first part I think of as the spiritual treatment plan, because again, this is who you are at the core of your being. This is like your soul. It's your mission statement. So start by defining your values. Your values are the fuel, the energy, which will drive you forward. Once you understand what your values are, you can start to think about what goals might manifest those values. What actions would I want to take in the world because these are things I believe in? And that's sort of like your map. There's many different goals, milestones, sights to see on the map, and you're not necessarily going to visit every one, but they're on your map because they relate to your values. They're places that you might want to go, that you could see yourself going to. And then finally, what is your true ultimate destination? Where do you want to mark on the map? That is your ideal future self. And then once you have that destination picked out, you can go back to your map and say, okay, here's the things that I'll pass. Here's the goals that will get me to that specific destination. And then you can start working toward that proactively.